With the regular season being over, all eyes in the basketball world have now turned to the NBA playoffs for obvious reasons, but while the best teams are still alive battling it out for the title, the teams at the bottom of the standings are regrouping and getting ready to push forward with their rebuilds, and that's actually what we're here to discuss today. Every year I like to put out a video around this time where we put the spotlight on the rebuilding teams, to highlight the biggest bright spot for each group as they continue to work on putting together a competitive young core to get themselves back to the top of the standings in the near future. So today, we'll be doing just that for the 6 current rebuilding teams. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first team up is the Detroit Pistons, and the biggest bright spot of their rebuild at the moment moving forward is the fact that they have solidified pillars in the 2 key positions of modern basketball: point guard or primary ball handler / playmaker, and at center. The players I'm referring to are of course Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, who, on a lowly group without a whole lot to be excited about, these two are showing they can be real pieces to build around moving forward. If you look at the success of almost every recent NBA champion, the trend you'll notice is that big men have seen a huge resurgence, and that having an elite playmaker leading the offense as your primary ball handler is vital. Last year's Denver Nuggets obviously fit this with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. The Warriors have this to a lesser extent with Steph Curry fitting the bill, then Draymond Green and Kevon Looney providing elite defense during that 2022 run, the Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jrue Holiday, the Lakers with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, who may not be a point guard by nature, but is obviously the team's primary ball handler and creator, and so on. Duren is a strong, athletic, mobile big man with nice touch and good hands around the basket, is a top-tier rebounder, and his defense continues to improve as time goes on. Then, as long as Cade Cunningham can stay healthy, he has shown that he can be an all-star in the making as well. The next rebuilding team up is the San Antonio Spurs, and the biggest bright spot of their rebuild is obviously Victor Wembanyama. Last year's draft was really the lottery of all lotteries to hit on, and the Spurs came away with the grand prize that should set them up for contention sooner rather than later. Victor Wembanyama was labeled as the best prospect of the decade by many before his career even began, and with his rookie season now in the books, it's safe to say that he's living up to that billing, and should be in for a monstrous year 2 next year. The Spurs have a lot of holes needing to be fixed, but the fact that they performed like an above-average defense when he was on the court, despite ranking 21st defensively overall, shows his unreal impact on that end of the floor, and he's almost a lock to win a few Defensive Player of the Year awards throughout his career. Offensively, he really started to find his footing in the second half of the season, being more comfortable shooting deep threes over contests that barely affect him since he towers over the opposition. He catches every lob even remotely around the rim and converts with ease, and his handle for a guy at his size is ridiculous. The next rebuilding team up is the Charlotte Hornets, and the biggest bright spot about their young group is that they finally started to build a defensive identity this year. The Hornets rebuild has faced a ton of speed bumps over the last couple of seasons with injuries, off-the-court issues, and overall lack of talent, and while a lot of that did still continue into this year, there was a sliver of hope that shined bright for them. The defensive end of the floor has always been one of the biggest places that the Hornets have struggled during this rebuild, ranking in the bottom third of the league on that end in each of the last 2 seasons, and this year they finished overall the season as the 2nd worst defense in the league. But after the trade deadline, the Hornets made some moves and switched things up for a bit, and for the next month of play after the trade deadline, the Hornets were the 6th best defense in the league during that stretch. I know 1 month isn't a huge sample size by any means, but it is at least a step in the right direction, and with new acquisition Grant Williams, who was at the heart of this defensive turnaround, being under contract through 2027, and rookie Brandon Miller coming in and setting the tone on defense for them this year as a whole, they finally have an identity on that end to build upon. The next rebuilding team up is the Portland Trail Blazers, and the biggest bright spot for them at the moment is their young backcourt. The Trail Blazers finally committed to a fresh rebuild this year by trading away Damian Lillard, so they've still got a ways to go to get back into contention, but the fact that they already have a ton of talent in their young backcourt to build off of is a pretty damn good start. Anthony Simons is still just 24 years old, coming off of back-to-back seasons, scoring over 20 points per game, and is one of the best high-volume three-point shooters in the league. Then both Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe are just 20 years old, with a ton of potential of their own. Scoot had a pretty rough go of it the first half of his rookie season this year, but in the second half, he did start to take noticeable strides forward as he got more comfortable, and he scored 30 points in the last game of the year for him to end on a good note, bringing positive momentum into his season next year. Shaedon Sharpe missed a lot of time due to injury this year, but when he was on the court, his explosiveness and scoring potential was definitely on display as well, so now moving forward, they can focus on bringing in players that fit around those guys. The next rebuilding team up is the Washington Wizards, and their biggest bright spot right now is Deni Avdija breaking through. Avdija was a top 10 pick back in the 2020 NBA draft, but through 3 seasons, he really wasn't giving the Wizards anything special like you hope to see from a player selected that early in the draft. He wasn't necessarily teetering on bust territory, but it was also difficult to get excited about his future after 3 seasons of marginal improvement, so the fact that he finally took a huge leap this year, right as his contract extension is about to kick in, is massive for where they can go as a team moving forward. Avdija is under contract for relatively cheap for the next 4 years, making an average of $13 million per year in that span, and this season, he was better on both ends of the floor across the board. He's a skilled wing player who put up 15 points per game, shooting 50% from the field and 37% from 3. He rebounds well for a wing player, grabbing about 7 boards per game, and he was even trusted more as a playmaker this season, en route to averaging a career-high 4 assists per game, and he did all of that while defending the opposing team's best player every night. And finally, the last rebuilding team to go over is the Utah Jazz, and the biggest bright spot of their rebuild is their giant treasure chest of draft picks. The Jazz so far have done a pretty solid job acquiring talent at a low price and getting the best out of them with players such as Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen, rejuvenating their careers there. And they've also drafted pretty well lately, but moving forward, they have so much flexibility with where they want to go because they have so many first-round picks at their disposal in the near future. They have one first-rounder in this year's draft, but then in 2025, they have 3 first-round picks, in 2026, they have 2 first-round picks, and in 2027, they have 4 first-round picks. On top of that, they have a ton of cap flexibility moving forward, so the world really is their oyster regarding how they want to build the future of their team, whether it be packing up a lot of those picks in a trade offer for a star, using them to continue building a strong young core, or both, while being able to sign impactful free agents as well with all the money they have to spend. Utah may not be the most glamorous free agent destination historically, but if they play their cards right, they've got an opportunity to make some big splashes. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think are these teams' biggest bright spots. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.